Hey everybody, get ready for the Jungle Machete Showdown. Now, a little bit of backstory on this video and why I'm doing this video, okay? We're fixing to get into all about these machetes. But what prompted this video is the simple fact that there's a lot of reviewers on YouTube that review products, and they'll take a knife or a machete or whatever, and they'll take it out of the box brand new, hold it up to the camera, tell you what it's made out of, the length of it and all this kind of stuff, and then maybe chop a little bit of it. Now that to me kind of shows you what the machete looks like before you buy it, but that's not the real story, because they don't have time with that machete and experience with that machete to really understand what you're getting into. So the purpose of this video, and I'll explain why I picked these particular ones out, and it's mainly because of my experiences with these and what I've learned and what I want you as a machete buyer, purchaser, consumer, what I would like for you to understand and look for and expect in a machete. Okay, so because I've got the real story behind all these things here. Now, as a consumer, this is one other thing. There's a couple of things I'm going to have to ramble on about machetes and consumerism before we get into these. You as a machete buyer consumer, there's going to be 4 different classifications, and I want you to remember these because you have to think about these things as you're experiencing a machete. Okay, there is good, good, bad, bad, good, bad, bad, good. Clear as mud, right? Okay, let me clear it up. Good, good. What that means is when you buy a machete and you take it straight out of the box, it's a good machete. You use it, experience it, get used to it, and it's still a good machete. Okay? Bad, bad is when you buy a machete and it is bad straight out of the box, and no matter what you do to it to sharpen it or modify it or reprofile it, it's always going to be a bad machete. Now, luckily, none of these 4 are bad, bad. Okay, that's one classification we don't have. Now you got to pay attention to these other 2. There's good, bad, and what that is if a machete comes out of the box, razor sharp, cuts good, but it's either too hard and chips come out of it, or it's too soft and the edges roll, or it just gets dull real quick and you can't put an edge on it. Okay, that's good, bad, and no matter what you do, the bad part stays bad because there's pieces missing out of the blade. A lot of these, or one of these, 2 of these, are going to be in the bad good classification, and that's where it comes straight out of the box. It's horrible. Wouldn't cut butter. But you can work with it and modify it and reprofile it and have a good machete. Okay, so those are some of the classifications there, and then there's a couple other things that I want to talk about. And I'll talk about them as we get into the machetes, particularly this one here. I'm going to talk about heat treatment and what it means and what it does and how it affects your sharpening of a bad machete. Okay? Alright, so let's get going with these, get to talking about it. Prompted to do this video on this style of machete because of mainly because of my experiences with these 2 right here and what I had to do to them, and my hatred for this one and my love for this one. But now people can change their opinions. This Schrade, okay, real quick, cold steel jungle machete, Condor Jungelo, Schrade, I think it's like a SCHKM1 something, it's a Kukri, and then this is a Honshu Boshin. Okay, this Schrade here, it's a funny relationship I had with this, because when I first got it, I liked it, and then I hated it, and now I love it. It's bizarre. And that's why this one is going to be the focus of what I'm going to talk about heat treat and what you need to know. Now, about these styles of machetes, this is a Kukri, okay? It's pretty much from Nepal. It has a point, it has a belly to it here, and then a curve, an upswept part. The spine has a distinct break in it. Okay, that is a Kukri. Now, for some reason, about 15 years ago, could be 20, the manufacturers decided to make one longer. All right, They made a longer machete, and they sort of flattened out the top, but kept the curve and the upsweep. And they decided to call this a jungle machete. Okay? So this, that's the first one I was going to grab. This is a Condor Jungelo. Okay? It has the belly, the curve, and it's kind of smoothed out on the back. Alright? This is a cold steel jungle machete. Same thing, kind of straightened out on the back with a curve and going up. Okay. These two they actually call Kukris, but they are in the jungle machete style. The belly with the curve, kind of a drop, but not a distinctive break in it. That's a Schrade. This is the Honshu Boshin Kukri, but I don't know, it's got kind of a break in it, but I wanted to include this machete because it's so long that it's more, and it doesn't have as much of a drop as a Kukri does. To wait, because the handle kind of goes down, and the spine is basically kind of in line with this. So, and then I'm going to talk about my experiences with these things one at a time, what they cost, what they're made out of, the length of them, what they do, how they feel my hand, and what I had to do to these things to make them a good usable machete. Alright, so hopefully you get a lot out of this. Hopefully you'll learn a few things, because I'm going to share some things I've never shared before about machetes. So let's get started, and I'm going to go from the cheapest to the most expensive. I'm going to talk about every one of them and what I had to do to them before we get into just a little bit of chopping. And I'm mainly going to talk about these, and the chopping part I'll chop a little bit, and we may go out into the field. I'm not sure, I haven't decided yet, because there's going to be thunderstorms and rain every day this week. So let's get started in-depth discussion of this, okay, the Schrade. Let's start out by talking about heat treatment. Now for those of you that know, you know, okay? Those of you that don't, this is a little lesson here. They start out, when the machete manufacturers, they start out with a piece of steel, usually an alloy piece of steel or some type of steel that is heat treatable. Okay, it's got an alloying elements in it or carbon in it. So what they do with it is they cut out a blank, and sometimes they'll rough grind an edge on it, and then they heat treat it. Okay, there's a thing called Rockwell scale, and that number designates how hard this is. All right, so they put it in an oven and they heat treat it. They bring it to where it's glowing red, and then they dip it in oil, or sometimes they air cool them. I'm not sure how, but anyway, that's the heat treatment part. Now when it comes out of the heat treat oven, it's real brittle. You can chop something with it and it'll break in half, or pieces will come out. So there's a process called annealing, or normalizing, or drawing back. There's several different names for it. And what they do then is they put it back in the oven at a lower temperature, and they put it in there for a longer period of time at a lower temperature, and it stabilizes it, does something to the molecules, okay? And it makes it the perfect Rockwell. Usually they're, I don't know, 45 to 55, depending on the type of steel. So here's the thing, if the manufacturer screws up and they get it to where it's too hard, it'll be brittle and pieces will come out of it, or it'll break in half. If they don't get it hard enough, then the edge will simply roll from being soft because it's got such a sharp edge. Okay. Now, the other thing that I want to say is this is something that's very interesting. Sometimes you can get a machete brand new out of the box, and they've heat treated it correctly. They heat treated it and they annealed it correctly, but whenever at the factory they were putting the final edge on it, the very edge got overheated and made it brittle. And that is exactly what happened to this Schrade here, and that's why I hated it. So now that all that's known about the heat treating and the annealing, and sometimes even though a machete is done properly, that first grind that they've put on can actually make the edge overheated and brittle, that if you come back with a file and a stone, you can remove that and turn a bad machete into a good machete. Okay? So, let's get a little closer look at this and the sheath. Schrade SCHKM1. Alright, this thing, it has a 13-inch blade, and it's made out of 3 CR13. Now, when I bought this about 3 years ago at Christmas time, it was $34. But I've seen it go down as low as $28 now, and they still sell this thing. Some of the reviews on Amazon are hit and miss. There's about probably 8 or 9 pictures of this machete broken in half somewhere in this area, and that's due to improper heat treat. And then there's a couple of pictures where this edge is all wavy here. So I wasn't expecting much when I bought this, but I love the shape. I thought the shape was very cool. Okay, so I took a chance and I bought it. Now, straight out of the box, and I never thought much of Schrade. I always thought Schrade was kind of a junky company, and so I stayed away from them, but I couldn't resist this for the price and the shape of it. So when I got this, I got it out of the box, and from here to here was like a giant razor blade. It was wonderful. I thought this is going to be a great machete, but first time out of the box when I used it, it chipped. Okay, so I thought, that made me so angry that I just threw this to the side and didn't touch it. Well, then I got to thinking to myself, well, it's a wasted machete, why don't I try to reprofile it? So what I did is, evidently they have overheated the edge of this thing, because, and I'd been reading Amazon reviews about how horrible the heat treatment was and how they were breaking in half, and so I thought, well, maybe mine had an overheated edge where they had sharpened it. So I sharpened this thing to a good sharp finish, took it out, buried it in some red oak, and it has held up. The edge stayed. It didn't chip this time. So this classifies as good, bad, good. Or, yeah, because it was razor sharp, and then chunks came out of it, and then I sharpened it, and then it turned out to be good. And it's a real comfortable handle. Okay. And now one of the requirements that I like is it's got to have a lanyard hole, because I like to have, no matter how contoured the handle is, I like to have a lanyard hole, because I like to wear a lanyard. That way you don't have to have a death grip on it, because if you're using it all day, you can have that lanyard on it. Okay. Now, as far as the lanyard goes, also, when it comes to the sheath that it came with, most people would think this sheath is a piece of excuse me, a piece of junk, because they don't like Cordura sheaths. But this is just an okay sheath for me. Now, it came with some sort of a weird strap where you wear it around your shoulder instead of belt carry. So I had to change some stuff on the back to make it a decent belt carry. But the way the machete goes in there is it spreads open just like that. And then you just simply slide it in carefully, trying not to cut all the straps. Now, most of these machetes like this, they have a strap that holds in the handle like this. Okay. For me, one of my requirements is I like the perfect length lanyard for my hand. I like for that lanyard to come around and attach to this first strap. So this sheath passes that test in my eyes, because I don't like having this thing dangling around when I'm walking through the woods. And this also comes with a little pouch with a diamond sharpener, in which I think this diamond sharpener is a piece of junk, because it puts a very coarse edge on this machete. So, but I guess if you're out in the field and you have nothing, I guess it'll work, but I'm not a big fan of that. Alright, so that's the Schrade version. Cold Steel Jungle Machete. This has been out at least 10 years. Now, my experience with this machete just about sent me to Rageaholics. Now, I never hated or loved Cold Steel. I thought they were just sort of an average company, and whenever I looked at their machetes, I wasn't really interested in them. And so, but I was at Smoky Mountain Knife Works one time looking around, and I pretty much had every machete that I ever wanted to buy. And I saw this one, and at the time it was $24.99, so I thought, man, I'll take a chance for it. This model has been out for 10 years, so I'm going to take a chance on it for that price. So it has a 16-inch blade. It's made out of 1055C carbon steel. And this thing, when I got it, it was all black, painted coated black, and it had a very, very tiny edge on it. Now, this thing was probably made with about a 30-degree angle on it, and then it had a very, very light, like almost a 40-degree angle on it. I'm telling you, I could drag this thing across my arm and it would do nothing. I could probably baton it across my arm and it wouldn't do anything. This was the dullest, biggest piece of junk I've ever bought in my life. I was so disappointed out of it. But, you know how I am. I like the shape and the style and the length of it, so I thought, well, I'm going to sharpen this thing. So I get my stone out because I don't want to overheat the edge. And I get my stone out and I start stoning on it, and it does nothing. It's like stoning on glass. I actually wore my stone down. So then I took my file and tried filing on it, and I couldn't file on it because it was so hard. And I'm like, this is such a waste of time. And I was getting angrier and angrier and angrier. And so finally I put oil on the file and put a bunch of pressure on it, and I got it to where it would cut. And I thought, this thing's so hard, the machete's either going to break in half or pieces are going to come out of it. But I fought against it because this machete's been out for 10 years, and there's just something people like about it. So I finally got it to where it filed down to more of a thin edge, about 25 to 30 something degrees, you know. And say, for those of you that don't know, say you've got a 25-degree edge. From the factory, I think they made it with like a 30-degree edge, and then whoever sharpened it put about a 40-degree edge on it because they just sort of touched it on a belt sander. So anyway, that's the explanation on that. This is somewhere a little bit above 25 degrees now. So after I did that with a file, I took a set of stones and I stoned it smooth, and then I took a strop and I stropped it, and I took it out in the yard and started chopping with it, and this thing is a beast now. And it didn't chip. It didn't chip, it didn't roll. I have no idea how they made a machete this hard and it didn't chip. So now it's a pretty decent machete. It's got a good edge on it. But the thing is it took me multiple days and lots of flying into a rage over sharpening this. But once I've got an edge on it, it hasn't got dull yet. It's kept its edge. All right. The handle was absolutely positively horrible. It was hideous. This thing sent so many vibrations up my arm, I had to take a bottle of Tylenol just to use this machete because there were some dips here. And evidently whoever designed it must have not used a machete for 4 hours because those dips, it made it very, very, very uncomfortable. So what I did is this is not electrical tape, this is insulative tape. It's a lot thicker. And I actually put what's called a palm swell on it, where it's bigger in the middle. And once I did that, it made it a lot more comfortable, and it kind of cut down on the vibration a little bit. Now, as far as I'm concerned, what would make this machete a really, really good machete is to cut this handle off and buy some micarta and make a micarta handle that comes all the way up here, from here to here, a longer handle. That way you could stay back here for your chopping, or you could choke up here for your carving. So, excuse me. That's the story behind the cold steel one. Now let's take a look at the sheath. Everybody, as usual, they say that the sheath is a piece of junk too. It's got a very, very hard tip on the end of it right here, so that I guess if you fall you don't stab something. But this thing right here, what you do is you lift up the strap and it spreads open like this, and you just simply slide the sheath in. Now here's the thing, you can lock it down right there. But this no longer works because I've added the tape to it, because the handle's gotten so much bigger. But this tape ain't coming off, so what I'm going to do is I'm probably going to remove this thing here and just sew some Velcro, a little bit longer piece of Velcro, so that I can Velcro it around the handle. Because like I said, this tape's not coming off, it's staying on there. Now, so this sheath fails the test because this is the proper lanyard and it doesn't reach up here. Okay? But hopefully, whenever I put this in, like this, hopefully it'll hold at least part of it. Alright? And I have added, a lot of times people that know me and have seen my videos, I don't just carry a machete. Instead of having a machete and a knife on my belt, I always just add the knife to the machete. That way I've got the whole system right there with me. And then I add paracord. I wrap paracord around and put a bunch of hot glue on the back to secure it. That way if I ever get into trouble and I need some cordage, you can just tear it loose from the hot glue and it will come loose. But I paired this up with a cold steel outdoorsman light. And I gotta say, this knife floored me. Because I bought 3 other cold steel knives in the past and they were just okay knives. But this knife is just, it's incredible. I love it. So anyway, enough about that. I just wanted to say what I added to this. So let's move on to the next up. We have the Honshu Boshin Kukri. When I saw this, I absolutely positively fell in love with the shape. Fell in love with it. I thought, this is awesome. But problem is, Honshu Boshin is a division of United Cutlery, and I always thought United Cutlery was a trash company because their blades were like swords, daggers, dragons, skulls, all this kind of fantasy type stuff that I didn't think that any serious outdoorsman would ever buy. But like I said, I took a chance on this, and this thing was $70. Okay, and Honshu also makes a parang, which I have. So anyway, this it's got a 13-inch blade, and this is made out of 7CR13 stainless. Okay, now here's the deal with this machete. When this machete came out of the box, it being stainless steel, it being 7CR13, it had a razor sharp edge. I mean, you could get cut on this thing out of the box. And so I thought, oh great, it's going to be a piece of junk. It's going to chip, it's going to roll, because nothing can keep an edge that sharp. Well, what I do, I went out and cut some rotten wood with it, okay? And then I cut some twigs for a twig stove. And then I'm like, ah, what the heck? I cut some hardwood with it, and it held up. And it never got dull, it never rolled edge, never chipped. And so this was good out of the box, and it's remained good. Took it out on some old hardened red oak and chopped big chunks out, and it's still sharp. I have not sharpened this yet. So this is a shocker to me, an absolute shock that anybody involved with United Cutlery could produce such a good machine. So, and it's got the lanyard hole on it. I've got the lanyard where it fits perfectly. You know, you can use it without having to put the death grip on it. So let's take a look at the sheath. The sheath is a very good quality leather sheath. Alright, as usual, you pull back the strap and you gently slide the machete in. Alright, now it has a leather strap here, straps on, holds the handle, no problem, snaps in good. The proper length lanyard just barely fits on that snap, just like that. So that part of the sheath passes the test for me. It has a very large belt loop. It's so big that not only will it fit on a regular belt, but if you're going to be carrying like a LC1 suspenders or a butt pack with a GI belt, this will fit on your GI belt, which is pretty cool. Alright, because sometimes I wear a GI belt with an enhanced nylon butt pack. I have paired this up. I got plenty of paracord on here for in case I get into a bad situation, and I paired it up with a Martini made in Finland. Alright, because I haven't seen any Honshu Boshin knives, and I really like this knife. So that's that kit right there, the Honshu Boshin. This is the Condor Jungelo. Alright, now I used to be Condor's biggest fan. Now the reason I say used to be is because to me their quality control has gone downhill and their prices have skyrocketed. So in the past, every Condor machete that I ever bought came straight out of the box perfect, razor sharp, ready to go. I chopped with it, they didn't get dull, they stayed sharp, they were absolutely wonderful. Well, this was the beginning of my downfall with Condor, because this came in like a giant butter knife. I have never in my life ever experienced a machete this dull out of the box. Now this machete, this Jungelo, was $90. If you pay $90 for a machete, you're going to expect some quality out of it, and I didn't get it. So that kind of made me angry there. So anyway, this is a 13-inch blade, 13-inch cutting edge. It's made out of 1075 high carbon steel, and I paid $90 for this machete. And it was so dull, I could have laid it on my arm and then hit the back of it with a piece of firewood, and it would have just bruised my arm. I mean, it was literally like a butter knife. I couldn't believe it. And so, and I've noticed a lot of the reviews, people are complaining about their quality here lately over the past year to 2 years, and they're also complaining about the price is skyrocketing, which isn't good. So, you know, I've kind of pulled away from Condor and started looking at other options. So anyway, this thing right here, now I think it's got a walnut handle. The handle here has what's called a palm swell, big here. Joe Flowers is a longtime Condor designer, and the bulk of his designs are wonderful. He understands handles, he understands blade geometry, he does good designs, but he has nothing to do with the quality control over in El Salvador where these are made, and that's where a lot of the problems are arising. But anyway, this thing here, when it came out of the box, it was a piece of junk. So if you can't sharpen, if you don't sharpen, if you don't want to sharpen, if you don't want to reprofile, then this may be your last choice. But if you have the ability to sharpen or reprofile, you can get one of these, you know, cough up 90 bucks, spend some time on it, and then once you get it sharp, it's a wonderful machete. It's absolutely fantastic. I love the shape, I love the feel, I love the handle. So this is one of those ones that was bad good classification. Okay. Now let's take a peek at the leather sheet. One thing Condor's always had in its favor is absolutely wonderful sheets, leather sheets. And a lot of them have these danglers, which is cool because you put this on your belt and it allows it to kind of swing around a little bit. And if you have to, while it's on your belt, you can lift it up to put it in. So one-handed, if you're gentle enough, you can ease in there and lift up those straps and drop it in and put it in like that. Lock it on here, right here. This sheath passes my test for that. Okay. All right. Now when I first got this thing, of course I've added the paracord to it. When I first got this thing, I added the Pathfinder Knife Shop Buffalo Skinner. To me, this handle is too slick. It's a very, very slippery handle, and they quit making this. So I'm eventually going to take that off, and I'm going to put a Condor knife on here because I've got about 3 Condor knives in leather sheaths with round handles that'll fit on here perfect. So I'm going to ditch this and put a Condor back on here. That way it'll be a Condor combo. Okay, so that's the rundown on all 4 machetes. And so let's start going through our use and testing. Several of these tests are going to be performed out in the field, but some of them are just simply easier to film here at home on the chopping block. So what this is the speed test and how the blade feels for speed chopping small stuff, because sometimes if you've got like a Swiss volcano stove or an emberlit or something, you want small pieces in instead of just twigs. And so oftentimes whenever I carry a Swiss volcano stove, I'll cut a bunch of pieces, little small pieces. Okay, and usually when I'm in the woods, what I'll do is I'll hold the piece down and I'll chop like this so that all the pieces will land right there. One thing before that real quick, a lot of people ask, they say, how sharp should your machete be? Well, one of the tests to see if you've got your machete sharp enough is if you take your full arm and come down and chop with it, that's one thing, okay? But if you take your wrist and you just give it a flick and it sticks in your chopping block by just a flick, then it's sharp enough, okay? So that's one way of judging it right there, all right? So let's start with a Schrade and see how it does, how it feels, how it does to my hand. Any machete is going to cut these things into little twigs. But see, usually you'll do it out on the end, like that. Now see, that feels pretty good. I'm going to do it down here because there's weight up here that allows me to chop with less force. Sometimes you can do that, but most people will preserve this edge for their fine carving. Okay. So that thing has a super comfortable hand, and I feel no vibration when I'm chopping. Now it's so sharp that with every blow it's wanting to stick and I'm having to pull it out. But I've never complained about things being too sharp. But it feels good to the hand, no vibration. You know, that does good on the speed twig test. Alright, cold steel jungle machete. Let's see how it passes. Kind of bounced that first time. I'm not necessarily swinging, so I've got this thing plenty sharp enough. That's, if it bounces, then it won't be a fair comparison to the others. So let's see how this one does. Now this has got a lot more length to it, and I've experienced vibration in the past with this thing. Vibration's not too bad with it. Now, that can wear you out with such a length, so let's see how it does if we'll choke up on it here and let this weight do most of the chopping. Does good, but without this thing vibrates like you wouldn't believe. And it would also be nice, like I said, if you could modify this thing and get rid of this handle and put a longer handle, you could choke up on here like this, and that thing could really... So I don't have a good grip on it because I'm holding onto the steel, but you could choke up on it for certain chores like that. And then come back here for when you're swinging at vines and thorns and grass. So that thing did pretty good, but like I said, without this would vibrate, send vibrations up my arm like you wouldn't believe. Now we have the Honshu Boshin. This handle is a very, very hard plastic. It's about as hard as the cold steel one, but I don't seem to be picking up as much vibration when I use this one. So let's see how the test goes here. Good and sharp. Now, see how it does on the speed test. Seems doing good. No vibration, feels great. Let's try it up here on this, somewhere in here. I don't know if I can get it up in here or not. No. See, that doesn't do good because this has more of a curve than the other ones. As close in as I could go would be right here, probably. And see, when you're doing that, that tends to wear, that doesn't wear your hand out as much as if you're doing it out on the end. Because when I'm doing like this, I can eventually feel a little bit more vibration. And you can also do things a lot faster. Let me grab one more piece here. See here a minute. So you can make a lot of little twigs. You can make a mountain of them very, very fast that way. So, Honshu Boshin. Condor Jungelo. Now if you look at it very carefully, this has a serious convex grind that I put on it. And I even stropped it. I stropped it with a leather strop to a nice polish. So, see how it does. It's nice and sharp. Such a pretty fair comparison. Let's see how it does. This doesn't have as much of a curve, so I can chop out here on the end of it and I'll allow this weight to do most of the work. I was kind of hitting over here on it. I'll have to come back a little bit. Perfect. No vibration. Feels great. I don't know what it is about wooden handles, but they're solid wood, but they absorb some of the vibration. That thing buried so deep I couldn't even get it out. That's one thing about this thing right here, is I said it was a piece of junk out of the box, but once you put an edge on it, you don't ever have to sharpen it again. This thing stays razor sharp. So their heat treat quality is good. Their grinding quality is what's horrendous. Alright, now, nothing better than a day out in the woods or wilderness, or actually this is east of the wasteland that was logged not long ago, but nothing like spending a day out here with a whole backpack full of machetes. So we happen to find a tree right here that looks like it's pretty good for the chopping test. Now, Nick is behind the camera now.
Hello.
And what we're going to do, Nick is going to take care of the vine and thorn test. Now, we just happen to have a stump here, which is handy, but we're going to lay these machetes out right here. And what we're going to do is, it would be unfair. Now, right now, these machetes are sharp, okay? So I think right now it would be unfair to do the thorn and vine test first, because I'm also wanting to see, once these are sharp here, is I'm wanting to see if it'll hold the edge after chopping, because we don't want to do the thorns and then the chopping. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to start right here and we're going to chop a little bit. And I'm not real sure how I'm going to judge this. I don't know if it's going to be 2 chops or 4 chops, but I want to see part of how it sinks in and if it sticks or not, because a machete that sticks on every cut is not a good thing either. So, this may bounce a little bit, so let's start over here.
We get on this side.
Okay, come around on this side.
Wait, fall over everything here.
Now this is kind of bouncy, but it's not that big of a deal. But this is not like the cutting the twigs, you know, like what we did for the twig stove. So let's take 2 chops and see how big of a chunk it'll take out. All right. All right.
Bouncing pretty bad.
Yeah, it's bouncing pretty bad. So what we're going to do now is, this is way out when it's bouncy. So that's going to be an indicator of, the further I go down, the less bounce it's going to get. So the first cut is going to be the Schrade. And I'm going to move down here, and I'm going to take a cut right here with the Schrade. Okay? Now see, that's kind of unfair there because I didn't take a chunk out. Let's try that again. That's more like it. Okay, that's what I was looking for right there. All right. So the first one, that's probably a 1/2 inch. Okay, that was a cut and a cut. This was not a good cut. This was my fault. And that's not going to be a indication of the Schrade. Now, the Schrade didn't stick. And you can see we've got 2 really good cuts. Okay, so that Schrade there. And that thing was really good to chop. The handle was comfortable. The length is right. It didn't send a bunch of vibration up my arm. Okay, so we're going to put this, we're going to lay that down as the number 1. The number 2 is going to be the cold steel. If I remember right, I'm going to try to go in order of price. Well, you know something, actually this was the cheapest. This should have been first. Alright, so let's go over here and let's make a cut right here beside it. See if I can make the second cut. That cut was pretty far away. That's an unfair comparison because it didn't take the chip out.
Still see how deep it is though.
Yeah, oh, that thing, it sunk down deep. And I didn't really feel too much vibration that time, but if I didn't have his tape on the handle, it probably would have vibrated. All right, so let's give it another shot, see if I can do a decent cut right here. Let's go right here. Nope, that's not a good indication. Let's try that again.
We're running out of space on this log.
Nah, maybe not. Now see, that's not quite as deep. Now, I could say this is not an indication of cold steel, and I could also say it with the same thing, but with the longer length of this, you could say, oh, you got more leverage, but I have less control of a longer machete. So let's look at that. So far, believe it or not, the Schrade beats that. All right. So now let's go with the Honshu Boshin. Now this is
can you repeat that?
Huh?
Can you repeat that?
Honshu Boshin.
Okay.
I've said it enough that I can. Now this is about the same length as the Schrade, so I should have some control over this. But this is a hollow ground, so it may stick. So let's try it. Let's try here on the third one. Let's see what happens.
That looks a lot nicer.
Yeah, that is. Now, I think that's a little deeper than this. Now this is one I've never sharpened. This is out of the box. No chips, no rolls, no nothing. That is a beautiful cut right there, and it's nice and deep. So, I think that's a little deeper than the first one. All right.
A lot deeper.
Now let's go with this right here, because we know these deeper ones, these are just baubles. Okay, so let's try. May have to get rid of that part. All right, let's try. I think there's a knot here, so let's try this. That's not bad. It's actually kind of equal to this. Okay, but it didn't stick, and I was thinking it was going to stick. So, all right, now let's try the last one. Now the last one, this is the Condor Jungelo. Almost all Condor machetes have convex grinds, which never stick, but it takes a lot more force to get them to go in. All right, so let's go up here and try on this end. Let's see if I can get it right here on this one little spot right here. All right. I'd say that's about equal to the Honshu.
Yeah.
Yeah, and as usual, this zero vibration, and it did not stick. These are both, the cuts are just a smooth polish. Oh, on all of them. Every one of them's got a nice smooth polish. All right, let's go down here and try on this one again and see. Let's try right here. See what it does. That's about the same as this. Very smooth cut.
Keep getting thinner cuts.
Yeah, well, that's because I kept screwing up so much. I'm trying to pay a little bit more attention.
So that was a mess up.
Yeah.
And that was, in order here,
Schrade,
here.
Cold Steel, Honshu, and Condor. So, I got to say this, when it comes to chopping, they are pretty much equal. Alright. So, what we got to do now, the next test Nick is going to do, and what he's going to do is he's going to wear them. He's going to wear them one at a time and see how easy it is to get out of the sheath and cut some small stuff, like maybe some vines or thorns or some small branches. I see some small stuff right over there that isn't still standing. We might do that. So, because we want to see if these things stayed razor sharp, and I'm pretty sure after this little bit of cutting it is. You think we should do any more cutting?
Let's get to the vine test.
Yeah, let's get to the vine test. I mean, we've proved
Vines
these things.
And small trees.
Yeah, there's no reason to wear my arm out. I mean, these things obviously cut like beast, and I think I'm amazed that as it flops out on the end, it's actually cutting deeper than it is when it's more solid. That's a surprise on my part. All right, you ready, Nick?
Let's go.
All right, Nick didn't wear the right kind of belt today, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to unsheath it and hand it to him, and he's going to take care of the light stuff test. Now, instead of vines, we're going to use a small tree that's laying here on the ground. But the way this thing is it'll move around a little bit when you walk. And you undo this, and you undo this, grab the bottom, and pull it out. Okay? Now to put it back in, hold on to these two, and slide it in. As far as I'm concerned, that passes the sheath test, because it's very easy to put in and out. Okay?
Dang, I always wondered how you sheathe the machete.
You know how, Nick. Here you go. All right, so give me the camera. And now what we're going to do is Nick is going to do. All right, explain what you're going to do here, Nick.
You know how you did the bounce test with that last tree?
Yeah.
So I'm going to do that here too, because I think that's going to show off how sharp it actually is. So I'm just going to go off by section here along this limb right here.
Okay.
So.
Now, that thing, as far away as that is from the tree and as small as it is, that is definitely a good test of what it can do and can't do. So,
yeah.
Let me get over here to the side. All right, see what it does, Nick.
All right. This is the Schrade.
Oh. Oh, no bounce at all, Nick. That's awesome.
Pretty good.
It is.
That's smooth.
Yes, it is. That is fantastic. That's a good edge right there, Nick.
That's very smooth.
Awesome. So that passes your test, don't it?
Oh yeah.
All right. I like that.
Can't tell it's starting to rain.
I know. All right, let's move on to the
Schrade
next one.
passed in flying colors, which surprised me because that machete was previously chipped. So don't lose hope on some machetes. Go ahead and try to reprofile them. So here is the cold steel. This is the one that took me about 6 or 7 days to sharpen. Now I added tape to this so this doesn't clip on. I'm going to add something later if I don't put a new handle on it. But you unclip there, reach down, and now this has got a real hard plastic on it, and pull it out. And now this is actually the easiest to resheath. So that definitely passes the sheath test. So, all right, now Nick is going to go to town on, we have found, what is this here, Nick?
This is a fallen piece of a tree, and it may look dead, but it's not somehow.
All right, are you going to cut in that
Or
direction?
it's at least still really tough. Okay, it's still really tough.
Okay.
Because it's still broken.
I'm going to stand on this side, and you're going to swing that way, away from it, right?
Yeah.
All right, so let's see how it does.
Kind of interested to see if this will go through both of these at once.
Yeah, you ain't going to start out on the very end.
Okay.
Go ahead,
Start on the very end.
chop all you want.
I don't know if that's where I aimed, but it still cut it cleanly. I'll do both of ththese now. Ooh.
It kind of splintered. Hold on, let me
That one
change.
broke, actually.
Let me change position. Well, that's not what you want. Oh, what, the top one broke and the bottom one?
Well, this one looks like it broke off. Like,
Okay.
there's a flat edge right there, like it
But
kind
the
of...
top one you cut.
Yeah, this
Hey,
one.
while I'm standing over here, do this little flippy floppy one right here.
Oop.
It bounced.
Yeah, it bounced.
I think that might be because that whole thing's unstable. Did it not cut?
It cut a little. There's a little notch right there.
Well, try again. It cut.
I'm worried about hitting you right there.
Okay. Well, before you were cutting in the other direction.
Alright.
Let me get right.
Maybe on the other side of this.
All right, which direction are you cutting in?
This one.
Okay. All right, now that was a clean cut, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I see it.
I think it's just because of this being dead, but
And the bounciness.
you can see that it's completely flat right there.
Yeah. Let's look at this one down here. Pick
Yeah.
that up and see how smooth it is.
It's very smooth.
All right.
So I think the others were just bad cuts, but this one shows off. It's pretty good.
Yeah. All right. Do you want to do any more with that one, or you pretty happy with it?
Let's have some fun with the others.
Okay. Sounds good
Yeah.
to me.
Find something that's easier to chop.
All right.
All right, so here is the Honshu Boshin. So open it up here, leather sheath, reach down. Now this is so wide here, it doesn't want to come up, which this is very heavy duty and it won't flop around much, but I like to be able to lift one up to pull it out. So I'm not real happy about that. But as far as it coming out, going in, hold that back, slide it in. It's relatively easy because I have some machete sheaths that are a nightmare to put in. So,
Fine.
all right, Nick, you ready to go to town on this? With
It's
the
time.
Honshu Boshin.
Give me that.
Give me that.
Give me that toy right there.
All right. So what we have is a flippy floppy little branch.
Yep. And
Yeah, I've got high hopes for that because that's like a giant razor blade. Now, as we're watching this, I want everybody to understand that I've never sharpened that, ever. As much chopping as I've done, that is a factory grind. So, see what I
same
can
as the
do.
first one.
Yeah,
On
nice
the end where it's
a flippy floppy branch.
definitely bouncy. That was easy. I don't even think I needed to swing that hard.
Really?
No.
Oh.
Okay, I tried. No, that one was, I was trying to see how light I could go at it.
Okay.
So that's not on this one. I was trying to see how light, but it's still.
All right. Now let me let me stand on
I can
this
tell
side.
this is sharper than the others.
You're still cutting in that direction, correct?
Yeah, I can tell this is sharper than the others.
Okay.
So that was just
You
trying
didn't
to-
you didn't put as much effort into it.
Yeah, that was just trying to see how light I could go on it, which is still pretty light because I almost went through it.
Yeah.
Oops, I missed.
You missed. Okay. That or the branch slowed you down.
No, I'm gonna go the other way.
Now let's look at the cut. How smooth is it?
Pretty smooth.
Pretty good.
It's so sharp. I was fixing to try this right here. That's probably stronger than the others have been.
All right. Well, cut that little branch off while you're at it. Let me hold on. Let me go. Are you gonna cut this, Wally? Let me go up behind you. Oh. Hold on. Wait a minute. You didn't get that on camera.
That's just a little one. They know this size has already been chopped. So this is huge compared to the
All
other
right. See if you can
chops.
do it in one whack. Ah, almost. Come this way about 3 inches and see if you can do it again. Yep, there you go. Now, these ain't, we had trouble finding vines and thorns, or should I say we didn't really look. This stuff's on the ground anyway, so we figure if this will cut this small stuff, that it'll definitely do vines and thorns. It's nice, smooth. One cut. All right. So you good with that, Nick? That and pass the test?
Oh yeah.
Like I said,
Definitely the sharpest so far.
and see, that's a factory grind, Nick. I completely reground the other three.
I laugh at the name and then it does something like this.
It commands respect, don't it, Nick?
Yes, it does.
That's awesome. Now remember, I've also got a parang made by the same company.
Got a
So,
little dirty.
yeah. All right, you ready to move on to the next one?
Yeah,
All right, let's
I
go.
approve.
Are you approved?
Now
All
we're
right,
on
Nick
to the
approved.
Condor Jungelo.
Now this is the only one with a dangler, which is very cool because it can dangle while you're hiking, and you can also lift it up so that you can hold it while pulling it out. All right. Leather sheath with 2 snaps. Grab the bottom, pull it out. Comes out very, very easily. To put this in, the way these are arranged, you just slide it under, lift it up, and put it in. So if I had to, I could wiggle it out with one hand, and if I had to, I could put it back in with one hand without damaging it. And that's a huge advantage on this sheath for if you can do that. So, here we go. You ready, Nick?
Yeah.
All right, here you go.
Give her ear.
All right. Oh, let's see. Oh no, look out.
See if I cut the string with that.
All right, so we have, what is that? Some kind of a
Yep. Another one.
very,
Probably.
very small
Well,
stuff.
Yeah,
You
it's
ready?
probably about the same as the first 2 trees. We can't keep chopping on the same trees, but
No, we can't, because we got to have a bunch of small branches to see if the tree gives or to see if the blade goes through.
so I'm gonna start on this tiny little branch right here.
Are you? All right, go
I'm just
ahead.
kidding, you know it's gonna cut it.
Unless it bounces it out of the way.
Okay, if you want me to.
Cut it?
Yeah.
Yep.
Cut it.
All right. A little bit of bark. A little bit of bark kept it on there.
A little extra bounce to it. I'm gonna do this one now.
All right.
Yeah.
I think that was a little bit, that was already had a crack to it. Did you notice that?
Yeah.
Look, you cut it here, but this was already cracked and dead.
Yeah.
That's not good. Let's go, here, go over there and try this one out here real quick.
Let's do a redo on this one. I think this one can do it a little bit better.
We'll try right here then. That's some small stuff. Go out there on the small stuff over there.
Alright. Missed. It's kind of jump.
That's not
No.
doing as good, Nick.
I think this one actually might not be.
Not be sharp enough?
Yeah.
Well, that's a severe convex grind. Let's give it one more chance. Let's go find one more green tree.
Like that one. Yeah.
All right.
Don't want to say it's the machete, but
Well, it could be, because like I said, that was like a giant butter knife when I got it. If that thing don't cut, it's half Condor's fault and half my fault. So let's go over here to another.
That's what that was. So
Yeah.
this is its chance to redeem itself.
Condor
Will it do it?
redemption. All right. Hey, start a little higher up and see what it does.
Go up here.
Yeah, up in there. Wait a minute. Let me move. I'm getting you back in the way.
Turning on this way.
Okay. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
You think part of it had to do with the angle you were standing at?
Could have been. There's a tiny bit of it.
All right, you're gonna do the.
Perfectly clean on that.
All right, you're gonna do the thicker part.
Yeah. All right. I'm not helping the other part in the way, but let's give her a go.
All right. That's pretty good there. How smooth does it feel?
Compared to the last one,
Mm-hmm.
it's like trying to hit a rock.
Really?
That last machete was very sharp.
Oh yeah. Well, like I said, that thing right
I
there.
kind of felt this turn a little bit when I hit it.
It's half Condor's fault and half my fault, because they delivered me a machete that was dull, and then I didn't do a good job of sharpening it. So, anyway,
If I bother trying with.
we're here. Go ahead. It ain't gonna hurt nothing. I bet you ain't gonna do that in one cut though.
No.
No, about a half a cut. That's pretty thick though. We didn't cut anything thick with the others. All right, let's move on. You ready to move on to the next part of it?
Yep.
All right, let's do it. Now, for the final test, it's something that a lot of you haven't heard of because people simply don't talk about it. It's the carry test. Now, before I get a bunch of keyboard warriors that say, "Ooh, when you're walking, put the machete in the sheath." People that know that there's times that you have to walk with your machete out. You can't take the time to whip it out and put it in, out, in, out, in as you're walking. Sometimes there's a chance that you need to just carry it while you're walking because you're using it so much, So, most of us can agree on that part. Now, here's the thing. You got to think about your natural instincts. If you're walking through the woods and you trip, your hands are going to go out, okay? If you're walking through the woods with a machete like this, okay, or this, when you're walking, if you trip, your hands are going to go out. And if you drop that machete, it's liable to land somewhere that you may land on it, or your leg may land on it. Or if you hold on to it tight enough while you're falling, which is totally unnatural, you're going to wind up, I don't know, maybe breaking a wrist or something bad. But if you trip while carrying a machete, that's a horrible, horrible, horrible thing. So the way I do it is I do the 2-finger test. And what that is you can see how comfortable it is, okay? And see how the Schrade, it's almost like it was designed to do that. Now the idea behind that is you don't want to have to hold on to the machete. When you're holding on to it, you want to be able for it just to gently cradle in them 2 fingers like that right there. Because if you're just gently cradling the machete, that is the fastest way that when you're carrying it, if you trip, your hands are going to go like that. And the machete is going to be either beside you or possibly behind you. And you're not holding on to the machete, okay? So you're walking along with it, you trip, and see it just comes right out of your hand. Okay? Mm-hmm. So that is the proper way of carrying a machete on the trail. Okay. Now the Schrade, the way it's made, that is perfect. Absolutely perfect. Now, let's take a look. Let me pull this up. Let's see how this one feels. This one fails. The cold steel is a complete failure. See this curve this way? That is the most uncomfortable carry that there is. That is a complete failure on that. And see, the front of this handle does nothing. So they could have easily have made it curved, but whoever designed this doesn't know the safe carry method. That is very uncomfortable. That would get on my nerves. The Honshu Boshin fails. Because it's
That's
got
a
this,
good one.
Yeah, the good one. Well, it's just a carry test because this has a flat guard. And so it's just very, very uncomfortable, and I can't curve my fingers. And you might, when you're walking with this thing, if you were to drop it, you might actually cut the tip of your finger right there. So that fails that part of the test. Now let's look at the Condor. Joe Flowers usually knows what he's doing on all these designs, so I figured this thing would be good, and it is. It's got a little bit of a curve to it, which is perfectly comfortable. So, compare it just like that. Walking along with it. Whoops, strip ball. Alright. So, that's pretty much it right there, I think. This is a very, very long video, and we're going to close with my final thoughts on these machetes. I think I've said enough about these machetes that you kind of know the features and what to expect and how I feel about them. The Schrade, I bought it for around $34. It may possibly be a little bit cheaper now, but the length is perfect, the shape is perfect, the handle material is perfect, the feel of it, the grip of it is perfect. Everything about this is perfect. Now, the heat treat is not. Okay, Schrade, get your act together, get your heat treat proper. Okay, because there was too many of these on Amazon reviews broken in half, and then there was a few of them that had rolled edges, and when I got this one it had chips in it. But that also leads me to another point. If you have a machete that if the edges roll, it's soft, throw it away. If they chip, you may have a hardened and overheated edge where they sharpened it. Go ahead and try to reprofile it before you throw it away. So as far as I'm concerned, and I lost hope on this because of the chips. And then when I was thinking to myself, maybe they overheated that edge. And so I reprofiled it. And now, you know, as I've seen, and obviously as Nick saw, this is literally like a razor blade. And there's no chips in it now. That thing's lasted. So Schrade, you have a winner if you get your heat treat together. Okay, I paid $34 for that. Now, this, I bought it at Smoky Mountain Knife Works. This is a cold steel jungle machete. I paid $24 for it. Amazon has it for like $30, so if you want to make Jeff Bezos richer, buy it from them. But there was a couple other sites. I think one of them was Knife Center. They actually had this for $18.99. So you can't. It's very hard to complain about an $18.99 machete, because if you get it, if the heat treat is right, that's all that matters. Who cares what the grind is? Because for $18.99, spend the time and put your edge on it, and this thing's wonderful. You cannot complain for the price range for this machete. But if you don't like doing a bunch of reprofiling, this may not be for you. Now, if you wanted to, you could bring this edge all the way up into here, or you could put a Scandi grind or a chisel grind up here for carving. But for me, I think in the future, I'm going to get rid of this handle because this radius is too big. It's irritating, and there's no palm swell. I would like to make a handle from here to here out of my Carta. And I think that would be absolutely perfect. But, you know, for the price, you can't beat this. And like I say, you know, if the heat treat is right, who cares what the edge is? You know, so cold steel, that is a value right there. You can get them things cheap. This has become a source of my sadness.
Well, that was a source of my joy.
Well, I'm fixing to explain to you and everybody else why I'm sad about it. When this thing first came out, I saw it, and I think it was 7CR13, yeah. 7CR13 stainless steel. This was a $60 machete. It varied anywhere from 60 to 70, but at Christmas time I got it on sale for $59.99. So $60 straight out of the box, razor sharp, didn't chip, didn't roll, perfect heat treat, perfect grind, perfect length, handles comfortable, perfect, okay? Couldn't ask for a better machete. The ads for these have disappeared, and the new ads now say D2, $150. So I hope they didn't discontinue this, because for $60, this and the Prying, its brother machete, is unbelievable. And the 7CR13 held up great. But they're making both of them out of D2 now and charging $150 So that might be the death of this one. So that saddens me, because this thing right here, and it's a part of United Cutlery, and I never really took United Cutlery real seriously, but after owning this in the Prairie, this Honshu line is incredible. So, and in closing, people that watch,
Oh boy.
oh boy, the people that have watched my videos for years and years know that I have always loved Condor. I've always been a big fan of Condor. Well, throughout the years when I loved Condor, their quality was excellent and their prices were excellent. But in recent times, their prices have skyrocketed and their quality's kind of gone downhill a little bit. So, this machete here, I like it. I don't love it. All of my Condor parangs, I love every one of them because the Condor parangs, the Village parang, the Bushcraft parang, the Mini Dooku, the Pack Go Lock, when I got them, they were razor sharp straight out of the box. So this is the last Condor. This one, I bought the Condor Warlock and it was dull, and I bought this and it was dull. So here's the thing, okay? As long as you got the heat treat right, like I said before, if you got the heat treat right, you can profile it yourself and have a nice machete. Because if the heat treat's right, it won't roll, it won't chip, it won't break in half. But on the other hand, you're talking about a $20 price range, and you're talking about $90. So for $90, I expect more out of a machete. Okay, but you know, if you're willing to take a chance on having to reprofile it, when you get done with it, it is a beautiful sheath, a perfect handle, a good length, and good steel. So that's with that. I like this, but I like my Condors. I mean, my parangs better when it comes to Condor.
So for $90, I could take that one, and that tree right there, I could just wallop away at it. Or for $60, I could have anyway, when they sold it, take that machete, and one swipe and that tree is down.
Yes, it all depends on if you're willing to resharpen a machete. And for $90, it kind of makes me angry to have to resharpen one. But the good thing is I can almost guarantee this will never break in half, because Condor's got their heat treat down pat. There's no doubt about that. It's just over in El Salvador, when they're sharpening these things, I guess they get into such a hurry that, you know, and maybe they don't even have quality control, you know. But if you get done with it, it's a good machete. So anyway, anything you want to add, Nick?
No, I just said it.
All right.
I think you know which ones I approve of here.
All right, hang that camera there a minute.
I wasn't going to say much, but...
Well, give me your thoughts. We're here. We're here beside the creek. It's a lovely day, fixing to rain.
Already did rain somewhat.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like doing the one swipe test. How easy is it to just rip through something real quick? To me, these two are my favorites for that. Especially this one, because this one just, you know, I didn't even have to put much effort into it. Sometimes it just went cleanly through it, but it's a shame that you say they don't really sell it anymore.
Well, I didn't see the ads for it no more. All I saw was the ads for the D2 machete at $150.
This one, for being something so cheap, you say that you have to sharpen it on your own.
Yeah.
But it also turned out really well.
Oh yeah, it did.
So this is a good bargain machete right here.
Yeah, definitely. Is there even any reason to say anything, since you know I paid $90 for that?
I like the handle.
Okay.
I mean,
Let's see.
the handle has a good feel to it. But
What Granddad always say, if you can't say something positive, don't say anything.
for $90, you shouldn't have any problems with it.
It should come right out of the box, just like that other one, ready to go.
That's what you should strive to be.
Yeah.
These two right here.
Yeah, straight out of the box. Well, now that Schrade there, remember I had to reprofile it.
Yeah, but I mean, it turned out great though.
Oh, it turned out great.
Yeah.
It's funny,
Especially this
Nick,
one.
that Schrade went from my most hated machete to now I like it. I like it a lot. But like I said, the reviews have showed a bunch of them broken in half, so I'm not going to do cartwheels recommending it.
Yeah.
It's a gamble. That's what it is.
Still got a good feel to it. And
Oh yeah, the handle right there is great.
like
The
you
length.
said, people may not focus on that for the carry test, but
Maybe
I
not.
managed to remember that.
Yeah.
So-
Oh, I hope everybody remembers that,
Yeah,
because
that's
that's
important.
very important. That's a big safety aspect of how you walk with a machete. Most people just say, "Oh, just put it in sheath," but
Yeah.
you know, there is a method for it. Not a very talked about method.
I'll keep this one.
Oh, you want that?
I'll keep this one.
All right, you earned it.
Yeah.
Don't cut that. That don't belong to us.
Probably shouldn't cut that.
All right. Well, we better wrap this up then, Nick.
Yeah.
Let me flip this around.
That camera.
So, oh, okay, you're gonna flip that back around so I can close.
Well, we had fun. We had a lot of fun doing this. We could have drug this out for 2 hours because there's probably other tests that we could have done. But you get the basic idea. And these are our thoughts on these 4 machetes. You know, this is the Jungle Machete Showdown because I had 4 different manufacturers. Parangs are kind of my favorite, but I doubt I'll ever do a Parang Showdown because all 3 of my Parangs are all 3 Condors, and I love all 3, so that'd be kind of a mute video, you know, because I would use them and say I love all 3. So
Yeah, they're all 3 just gonna pass my 1 swap test.
yeah, the Parangs will. Those are beasts. They're incredible. Of course, they're all very, very old. I guess when they had higher quality control standards. But anyway, next video is going to be something very interesting. There's a piece of gear I've developed. It's an improvement over an old piece of gear, so you'll just have to wait and see what it is. So, till then, enjoy life. Get out, chop some stuff up,
Yeah.
and we shall. See you in the next one.
See you later.